Today we're back again with some more early F1 Manager 2023 gameplay. This time around it's going to be from inside career mode. We're 11 rounds in to this unique save that Frontier Devs gave me at the British Grand Prix, managing the Mercedes team with Hamilton and George Russell. Obviously earlier in the week we did upload a brand new gameplay from the new mode, Race Replay, where you can play through different scenarios and rewrite history. So if you guys did miss that video, be sure to go check that one out as we try to rewrite Alonso at Monaco to try and maybe win the Monaco GP in those changeable conditions. But now this is our first look into some career mode from the upcoming brand new F1 Manager game. So just going through some upgrades just to kind of see if anything's a little bit different. And what is different, I noticed, is you've now got durability at the bottom, so you can actually strip the weight of the different parts, and that will obviously, you know, benefit you in terms of less weight for the car, but will also mean that the part you create is less durable. So that's a factor you're gonna have to think about now over the season, is making more durable parts and maybe last longer, but you're gonna have to take a time penalty of just the general car being heavier. And obviously that's been a big talking point in this new era of Formula One from last year into this year. You know, the team we're managing even, you know, stripping a lot of the paint to become you know, all in black this season compared to silver last year. So a different kind of you know, thing to look at when you're making the upgrades, but the usual kind of focus of trade-offs with the low, medium and high speed for the downforce, velocity with the drag reduction and DRS delta, and airflow sensitivity as well in terms of how, you know, sensitive that's going to be in terms of following cars, etc. But you've got the kind of usual CFD, you've got the wind tunnel time as well, but that's just another thing now to worry about when it comes to actually designing your parts, all in the context of obviously, you know, the cost gap, you know, how many days it's going to take you in terms of rushing, how many engineers you've got to develop there. So just one other thing to kind of manage when it comes to upgrading the car. And we were also told we should maybe have a try at looking at the F2 and F3 results. Of course, on this year's game now, there's going to be fully simulated junior categories of F2. So you can see Théo Pourchaire winning that F2 race just gone by at the Red Bull Ring you know, in the F2. Literally just the F2 race has gone by IRL this weekend. But so we're going to go ahead and scout Vesti, because I thought that'd be quite realistic. You know, he is, I believe, you know, linked to Mercedes with his junior career. So we're going to go ahead and try to sign him as a reserve driver, and this will now show off the brand new ability now to sign not just reserve drivers, of course, your main drivers. You can delay when they're going to get signed till the following season. So that was a big gripe on last year's F1 Manager game, that you immediately had to sign them, and you can't do any kind of long-term planning as you can in real life. You know, in real life, you don't see many, you know, major swaps between rival teams or big names, etc. Even, you know, in-house with Red Bull, sometimes you do see it, but it's quite rare. And most of the time, you're doing these contract negotiations for the following season, or whenever, you know, people's contracts are up, or buying out someone's contract to move to the next season. So this is now the first time we can see that in action. So we've set the start date to next season to replace Mick Schumacher as our current reserve driver, and we're taking Vesti from F2 to Formula One as a reserve driver. And so we will have to pay, obviously, you have to work out the salary, you have to work out a signing bonus still, and things like breaking the contract of your current reserve driver, but you're delaying when he actually starts. And so it may not be as important for a reserve driver role, but for your main driver, let's say you've accumulated cash, you know, your team's on the up and up, you know, you might want to plan for the future of getting a star driver. And, you know, like myself, you know, when we played F1 Manager 22, you know, I was looking to get Alonso in, then Lando in our, you know, Alfa Romeo Audi career, and it was a case of we immediately signed them. Whereas now you can pre-plan, like, oh, we're going to be a bigger team next season, let's get the star driver in for then when the car's ready. Another point to also make in terms of what else you can manage in the new 23 game is you've got a sporting director now who's going to be able to improve the pit crew overall. So, you know, you can do development focus of balance, communication techniques, drill planning, and industry standards and innovation when it comes to that area of the car. So that's more about the actual personnel within the team he's going to oversee, so i.e. your pit crew, etc. So that's another person now you're going to have to worry about in terms of hiring, firing, and, you know, trying to poach in the job market, let's say. And then you've got the training schedule, which we did see when we first learned about news of this brand new game, but this is the first time I could actually play around with it. So we've got a few selected presets. So I've gone for pit stop time out and out, but you can go in and micromanage each of these days. This is how much detail there is in this. You know, you can split the days into two, to morning and afternoon. You can go for rest, gym time, actual practice itself, and that's all going to affect on the right hand side the training summary of the chance of mistake, the fatigue of the team as well. So I really like this. This is very much kind of going in the right direction, where it's kind of actually, you know, you can really make a difference in the pit crew. Whereas last year on 22, it was very frustrating not really being able to make much of a tangible difference. You know, you could focus on one area of the pit stop, but it was very futile. It really didn't make much of a difference. Whereas now you can tangibly see numbers of a chance of a mistake in different scenarios, with getting the used tires off, the new tires on, tightening the tires, lowering the car release. All these little things you can now develop and manage with the pit stop crew, and then focus on the fatigue as well. But now we're going to get into the actual race itself. So we've done practice and the usual kind of, you know, trying to gain as much kind of info as we can. We've got the setups on a 93% setup for Lewis Hamilton, 80% for Russell, so couldn't get him just as high as Lewis there, but we tried our best. We then simulated qualifying, and right now Lewis is going to start in 3rd place, and Russell, I believe, will 4th place. I think it would have been lower, but ironically and funnily enough, the Ferraris, I think both of them face some grid penalties for this British Grand Prix we've got in here, so keeping in touch with the Ferrari kind of issues or mistakes here and there into the British GP. So we've been elevated a little bit, and I think the goal will be trying to attack the Red Bulls as much as we can. Of course, in this career save, I don't know what upgrades they've done. They've just gave this save 11 rounds in, so I assume maybe, hopefully, there's got a couple of upgrades from Mercedes to allow us to maybe attack. But in terms of strategy, we're splitting that with Lewis. I'm going to go for a more aggressive 2-stop, and I wanted to kind of just test out the game in how it's going to work with tyre management this season, and this year rather. So going for a 1-stop with Russell maybe for the medium to hard tyres, and then a bit more aggressive with Hamilton, going for that 2-stop. I assume maybe a lot of the AI might do a 2-stop, but let's see how a 1-stop could play out for Russell, and just testing out in the race conditions. Is there a bit more tyre wear saving involved? Because I feel like last year it was very difficult to maybe eke out tyres as much as you wanted to whilst keeping up general pace, and at the same time, you know, pushing, there was obviously not a lot to do with the tyre temperatures. Whereas this, you know, you're going to find out in the race later as we go on to it, on this year's game, the temperatures and the range you're working in is so much more obvious, and you kind of get a better indicator of when the tyre is going to work better. But with all that pre-prep in hand, let's go to the start of the race and take it on to Crofty for a second to intro us in to the grid.
The British Grand Prix is nearly upon us. The drivers composing themselves on the grid ahead of 52 laps around Silverstone. We look now to Esteban Ocon, who's clearly ready and raring to go.
Absolutely. Sitting in P7 and hoping to pick up a few points for the team.
But remember, anything can happen in Formula One. Hold on tight. It's the British Grand Prix. And it's lights out. And away we go.
Pushing the drivers immediately as we go off the 5 red lights from the second row of the grid, running on board with Hamilton. The 2 Red Bulls side by side. Perez taking the lead here at Silverstone as they go into Village. Max on the left, Perez on the inside, and we're just tucked up behind with Hamilton. Now remember, with Hamilton, we're starting on the soft, so we need to be aggressive. With George, we're going to play a bit more tactically about maybe not trying to push as much, but you can see working on the defensive approach and the aggressive approach. So I'm going to go for actually neutral with George. I had a thinking of maybe going for always defending, but that's also going to slow us down. So we're going to go for a neutral for George. With Lewis, we're going for aggressive overtaking. So as soon as he gets a whiff of maybe an overtake's possible, he'll go aggressive. We're pushing on the tyres as well to max out on the red, on the 5 dials, whereas Russell on the 3 to go a bit neutral. And immediately you can see that difference of Lewis staying on the back of Max Verstappen, Russell a bit further back on the mediums. Interestingly enough, Verstappen also chose medium, so Verstappen might be trying a more conservative approach as well. Even more reason to try and get Hamilton ahead. So we're really racing Perez with Hamilton here today, and maybe it's going to be Russell versus Verstappen with the difference in tyre strategies. We once again view the race on board with the visor cam. Absolutely epic, way to watch the races, although obviously sometimes you don't get a full clear picture of what's happening in the race. So, but it's nice to switch to, for sure, when you're in the middle of a battle. But Perez getting away from us a little bit as he sets a faster lap onto lap 2. Verstappen defensive into turn 1. We need to be trying to get past Verstappen, and Hamilton will commit. And almost immediately now on lap 2, side by side with Verstappen, Hamilton the long way round. And one thing I noticed playing this race, I really do feel like the battling seems a bit more, just a bit more epic, a bit more on the nose, like there's side by side moments, really good, wheel to wheel action. So I think in terms of watching the race as you're managing it, is going to be a bit more enjoyable. I think last year there was a bit of battling here and there, but the battles were over quite quickly, whereas you're going to see here we've engaged Verstappen, didn't go off straight away. Verstappen defended well. We're going to have to re-engage with the battle, but there's just plenty of side-by-sides. But playing around with the fuel, because we're already on kind of, 0 kg there, but I'm trying to push George as much as we can just to stay ahead of all those soft tyre runners of Alonso, Ocon, Gasly. As here we go, second time lucky here with Hamilton side-by-side into Maggott and Beckett, and in the middle of that, the safety car is going to get deployed. I think Hamilton just got second place on the softs as the safety car is out, so that's a very early one, just like we saw just now in the real-life Austrian Grand Prix. So we're going to conserve the fuel to save that, conserve the tyres, and harvest as much as we can. Take the ERS battle assist off just to save as much ERS as we possibly can. And Leclerc is out. Leclerc is out here at Silverstone. Let's not hope for Ferrari fans out there. That's not a bad omen for the real-life British Grand Prix. We get underway now on lap 5 into Village. Another battle. And this is with Hamilton versus Perez now. Remember, off the safety car this is. So this is the direct battle between Lewis and Sergio. Verstappen now maybe has Russell for company. I'm hoping Russell, we can try and push him on to fight Verstappen a bit more, but we're focused on Hamilton just trying to get into P1 because obviously we want to try and win the race. Sainz is way down in P16. The Ferraris got absolutely nerfed out of this race with the grid penalties they had. In terms of tyre wear, at the moment, looking at the graph on the pace commands there, Lewis still has a pretty good amount of tyres, and we've got 82% versus 81% on Perez, so that was quite promising to me, because on last year's game, every time you pushed, the AI were just incredible at keeping tyre wear more than you, and you would always be consistently lower. But this is the first time, I have pushed Lewis pretty hard in this race, and he's 1% higher than Perez at the moment. So that's quite nice to see that it's not just a case of the AI being so overpowered in that kind of region where you're pushing at the start of the race, maybe on an aggressive strategy, and we can actually keep up tyre pace with Lewis, as we've set it to aggressive, and he is very much playing this aggressive as we go for the move on the inside of Village. He's still neck and neck. Perez squeezes him out, but we're gapping Verstappen by 1 second onto lap 11. The gap is now 6 seconds as we're really pushing it, and it definitely seems like Russell and Verstappen are both on a conservative strategy, and we're trying to go round the outside, dance this around the outside of Luffield with Russell. So this is the second direct battle here of Red Bull v Merc. We just can't get Verstappen on the outside with George, but that definitely seems the battle then. We're locked in with a 2-stop Perez versus Hamilton. I don't know if Verstappen's necessarily doing a 1-stop or 2-stop, but at this stage, he's clearly trying to nurse his mediums, because we've gapped, Perez and Hamilton have gapped him by 6.3. So the pace is electric right now. But look at the bottom right there. I'm actually conserving tyres with Hamilton, because this year the tyre temperatures actually show up in colour and actually note if you're losing pace. You can see that icon to the left of 126 6 Celsius degrees. That means the pace is slowing on the tyre because we're overheating them. And last year, it didn't really matter matter at all. Like, I feel like you could just push it so much, whereas on this year's game, I think you're tangibly seeing a difference there. So even whilst he's fighting Perez, we're on that conservative, trying to bring the tyre temps down. They come back into a working range of 124 degrees Celsius, but he's still having a go at Perez, you know, 8/10 the difference there, and Russell also having a go on Verstappen. Second time lucky, he's on the inside this time now for Luffield, and he's able to maybe try and get the move done. Hopefully he can get the elbows out, as we're now losing a bit of time to Perez, and now's the time to come in. But you saw there were glimpses of you don't have to be on aggressive, or, you know, you can be on neutral or slowing down. But if you're in the right kind of area with DRS, your driver will still stick with them, and it won't just be a simple drop-off. But we've come in earlier for the pit stop to try and get an undercut, because we've seen, you know, this year the undercut can be very powerful with the tyre temps taking quite a lot to build up. So we're trying to get that undercut to overtake Perez in the pit stops here. Perez is now in, and Lewis coming through turn 1. He's catching up to Sainz and Norris, out of sync of this strategy of ours, and we are ahead of Checo. So that undercut has worked with Hamilton. Verstappen continues on in P1. Russell closing up. He's still been there pretty much in a DRS zone of 2/10, so they're doing their own race, sticking in. I need to try and get past the Ferrari. Unfortunately, the Ferrari gets Lando. We're going to overtake Lando with ease there to get up into P4. Perez has caught us now, as we're still watching this battle of Russell doing really well to stick on the back of Verstappen, despite the entire time I've just had Russell on neutral. So that's positive to see. They're able to stick with the Red Bull and not having to wreck the tyre, really, to stick with him, basically. But now on lap 20, Perez has powered past this. We're down to P4 with Hamilton, so Perez flexing the muscles, and clearly the Red Bull still has a bit more pace than us in general than the Mercedes here. Only 11 rounds into the career mode, Season 1, you'd say the Red Bull should still be the better car, obviously 11 rounds in, but Russell gets Verstappen. Verstappen has to back out of it, overtake successful, and Russell pretty happy with that. And all these little things will add to the confidence in the race, and I talked about this in the race replay. As the race unfolds, driver confidence, which I liken to focus on the EA F1 23 game. Unlike in that game, in the manager game, the focus, the driver confidence can actually fluctuate as you go on through the race. So your driver can go, as they get on through the race, building confidence. And by the time they get to the end of it, it can be absolutely on it. You know, think about races we see in real life. You know, let's say, you know, Lando gaining confidence through the Austrian Grand Prix that he can do that job, get that P5 for McLaren today, earlier at the Red Bull Ring. That kind of thing where you build the confidence, and likewise you can lose confidence like Hamilton did around the Red Bull Ring, lose confidence in the car. But at this stage, lap 29, just going through the motions to lap 34 now. Perez is pit, I think, as we're up into P1 now with Hamilton. Yeah, Perez is 13.2 seconds back. So this time, Perez is the one who pit earlier. That's because he went from soft to medium to... Oh, no, he went, I think, soft to soft, sorry. He went soft, soft, medium now. We're going soft, medium, soft. So we're ending the race quicker versus Perez, who's doing that alternate one. He's going on 2 sets of soft. So that's why he's pit earlier now for the second set, and he's already setting fast laps of the Grand Prix. So we're now going to come in, I think, on this lap to go onto the soft tyre. So Perez will have the track position as he's gained time on that medium tyre. Meanwhile, with Russell, kind of in no man's land, because Verstappen, look at the icon there, the red triangle. He's had some sort of contact or damage or penalty or whatever, so he's going to be out of our race. So Russell comes out, well, he's ahead of Hamilton because Hamilton makes his second pit stop here. Confidence pretty okay with George. He's going to get overtaken by Hamilton eventually, and Sainz might actually jump us because Russell, we've had to try and conserve. So I wanted to just try and see what this one stop was like, basically. So now lap 50, we've really moved it on through this race because we've just been doing our own races like Formula 1 does. You know, there's not fighting every single lap. But look at this, we bridged the gap back to Perez, 1.7 We've got the fuel. Now, 2 laps to go. The temperature doesn't matter too much to me. So we're just pushing Hamilton flat out to try and gain on Perez for this race win. Meanwhile, with Russell, same thing again, pushing flat out to try and just solidify the P4. I think in hindsight, I maybe could have pushed Russell a bit more through this entire race because the gap is 3.8 to Sainz. I think maybe with a bit more pushing, we could have been a bit closer to getting that P3 for him. But also at the same time shows, Ferrari. I think Ferrari were actually on pole technically for this British Grand Prix until Leclerc and Sainz both got penalties. So that's maybe more showing that the Ferrari just was very quick around this race and Sainz was able to recover. But Verstappen having a nightmare all the way down in P8 with that penalty and damage he had. But look at this. We're really bucketing along and gaining on Perez. A little bit of time lost through Luffield, but we are slowly gaining on him. On to the last lap of the race in the middle sector. Hamilton pushing all the way, all the time. We're really getting some pace on the straight as we go down to the last sector. Perez quite weak here. We're going to bring it down under to 1 second nearly as we go through the final corner. Literally 1 second separates Hamilton and Perez as we go on to, now this is the last lap of the Grand Prix. That was the second last lap. So this is the last lap, pushing Hamilton flat out. You can see we've actually saved a lot of battery. That was another thing I found in this race, and we kind of found it in the race replay as well. I feel like it's much simpler and easier time to manage the battery over the race. You're not going to find yourselves in absolute no man's land with the battery. I think thanks to the ERS battle assist as well, but it means we have the pace here. Look at this. This is a really exciting end as we're now under half a second to Perez as we go through Maggots and Beckett's. Even Russell, to be fair, we've closed the gap to 2.7. So in hindsight, we've run out of battery with Russell, but we could have pushed him hard on the tyres. But Hamilton, we've judged this really well, and it's close. We've got DRS on Perez on the back straight. We're closing up. Perez just having enough to defend that. Can Lewis go for the dive? I really wanted him to. Perez goes defensive and able to just keep that. But we're literally neck and neck there, like nose to tail. It's going to be, the race is going to finish under 0.3 of a second. Really exciting ending. We nearly pulled off the win with Hamilton on that 2-stop, on the soft tyre in the end. And yeah, we have had some close races like that on F1 Manager 22, but I feel like it was actually quite controllable, quite manageable to get Hamilton closing up to Perez like that. Whereas on last year's game, I don't know, maybe I just managed it very well, but I think on last year's game I maybe would have run out of battery, push the soft tyres too much. But this year there's more info given to you about the tyre temperature range. The battle assist helps a lot, I think, and so we've just got a really exciting end to the race, really. So I hope there's going to be more to come like that kind of race. If you can have a race like that every time, it's going to be a really enjoyable game to play. But all in all, yeah, I think the race was just easier to manage with this British Grand Prix. I think there's a lot of times where on last year's game I felt boxed in with the ERS not being enough, the tyres going off, and I couldn't really do much, or you have to protect the tyres too much and you're losing too much pace. Whereas even with Russell having to conserve, at the end I pushed him and we were gaining a second on Sainz, so really I could have pushed Russell more and earlier in that stint on the 1-stop, remember. So yeah, it's hard to obviously tell just one race in isolation. It could have just been, obviously we had a good strategy in play and I just played that right, but I for one thought I was managing that a lot better than I would have done on last year's game, basically. It did help that the Ferraris were obviously taken out of the fight because Sainz recovered back in there. They both had penalties, but all in all, as a one race kind of thing to play, this time last year when I had played some F1 Manager 22 earlier, I found it so difficult to understand how I could really push and kind of get the driver I wanted them to. Whereas this year, it did seem a bit better. Like, oh, I want to get Lewis fighting for this win. Let's catch Sergio on the quicker tyre at the end. And we were able to do it. And we nearly got the win there. So, yeah, overall, quite positive signs from this British Grand Prix. Obviously, it's going to, we can't really comment on the long-term play of how a season plays out. But that will have to wait until the full game. Not too long now, to be fair. Like a month or whatever. At the end of the month, it's going to come out. So, not too long to go. But, guys, if you have enjoyed this early gameplay from the career mode of F1 Manager 22, 2023, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you made of it. Do you agree with me that it did seem like it was easier to maybe manage things? And not easy in the sense of it's too easy now, in terms of just, it seems like you have more data to actually understand what you need to do with the tyres, the ERS, to actually close up. And the tyre wear doesn't seem that ridiculous anymore compared to the AI, whereas they were quite overpowered, I felt like, on last year's game, and it's actually a nicer time to play it. Let me know if you kind of got that from the gameplay. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll catch you guys around. Goodbye.